Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Deep Talk Show. I'm here with Liv Miller, who I can say is a friend that I met at a summit, and she's a great person, and she's also an incredible mental health activist. So I'm really excited. Liv, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, no problem. It's such an honor.
Yay. I'm so glad we're finally doing this. I'm really excited.
I know, me too. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the first question that, because you do mental health ac advocacy and like activism, this is a question that I kind of ask everybody that does that. It's like, how did your journey get started?
Yeah, for sure. I think, for lots of people, there's like a lot of critical moments in time that have indicated, oh, maybe this is like the journey for me. And a lot of times that comes with lived experience and different things that you grow up going through. And so it was honestly the same for me. And I feel like there were little indicators along the way of like, oh, yeah, this is probably going to be something that becomes really important to me because I've struggled with my mental health since I was like 12 or 13. And so it's been like I guess almost a decade, over a decade of counseling. That's so weird to think about. And so for me, it was very much a topic of conversation at home. And it was, something that I had to be very mindful of growing up, but I didn't always have the tools and the dialogue that I needed to talk about it. When I was in high school, I noticed like a really big dip in my mental health. And I had had some like throughout my life as like a preteen. But high school is so rough sometimes. And I think that those dynamics really elevated what I would go through in fluctuations. So yeah, in high school I experienced this kind of dip in my mental health where on the outside I was this like student leadership kid, I was a choir kid, a music nerd, and a lot of the times I was still able to be social. I was able to keep up with my grades. And check off all of the boxes of what was required of me, but I would spend, lunch breaks hiding in empty classrooms, or I would call my parents by third period and say, I need you to pick me up. I cannot be here right now. And so it showed in quiet ways, kind of if you knew me well enough to notice when I just randomly disappeared. There were lots of relationships during that time that were helpful for me, and there were a lot that were not, and a lot where I didn't feel like I could even explain what I was going through. And so it was the summer before grade 12, and I remember I was working at the local ice cream shop here in town, and a friend of mine sent me this article about a teen from the UK named Paige, and Paige had gone to a bridge in her community, and she had attached positive handwritten messages that she just did with some Sharpie one day, and eventually they reached out to her because they wanted to tell her that while those messages were up, she prevented over a dozen deaths by suicide just in that simple action. Um, and so obviously, like a random act of kindness that had a huge impact. And I remember reading this article, and that little student leadership kid in me just really thought for a second there, like maybe this is an idea that I can do. And I knew that my capacity was low, but I also knew that I had been navigating that for so long. Like it was so normal for me to have ups and downs that maybe this is something I can do because I've grown up in a very rural community. It's still a very conservative community, and a lot of times we're not having conversations about systems change in mental health. We're not even having those conversations at all. And in rural communities, especially, the agriculture community doesn't talk about their struggles with mental health, and there's actual physical isolation because you live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and there's maybe a single family resource center, a single counseling center that you can go to, and everybody knows everybody. So you don't want to put your face out there because then people are going to talk about it. So it's a very different vibe out here. And I thought maybe this simple kind of nice gesture would be approachable enough for my community to rally behind. They would feel comfortable enough to have the conversation because it's a nice thing to do. And it's not so bold and in your face that we're talking about mental health, but we still get away with kind of doing it. So the friend who sent me the article, her and I partnered up, and that's exactly what we did. We called it Bridges of Hope, and we went to different bridges in the community, and we put up little laminated messages that had been submitted by email or by social media by people in the community. And we had folks come out and share their lived experiences with mental health. We had politicians talk about their own experiences and what they've noticed in the landscape of mental health conversations. And it was a really eye-opening experience for me, just as someone who, I thought I had been doing mental health work my entire life, but I realized I wasn't really talking to a lot of people about what I was going through. My family knew, but I wasn't opening up to the people around me. And it started to create kind of that shift of acceptance, even just in my own personal life and the people that I had in my life. They talk about like that law of attraction or setting that intentions and having it come your way. And I found that the more that I got uncomfortable and spoke openly about my mental health, the more that I met people who are also doing that. It's like we started getting drawn to each other, and now I'm so thrilled to have lots of people like you in my life who do this, and make it, the norm to like have these conversations. So Bridges of Hope really kickstarted something for me. I ran the events for two back-to-back seasons. And then I actually took a pause to focus on my own mental health, but I still do public speaking to tell Bridges of Hope story because I think it's really important that young people, especially, hear that this is an idea that really came from the simplicity of somebody else. It came from me feeling this tiny glimmer of a calling, and I wasn't your ideal leader to do it. I was someone who was struggling. I wasn't um, picture perfect, and it wasn't an easy time for me. But that doesn't mean that you're any less of a leader. It doesn't mean you're less capable of doing something like that. And so that's what I really try to share about that time in my life now. And I'm super lucky that it opened the doors to so many people who are having these conversations. I didn't realize how many people were talking about this, again, probably because of where I've grown up. But it's so great to be a part of like a larger, almost national community now of people who are having these conversations. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, well said, first of all. And I know Noah Khan does stuff for rural mental health care, which is awesome. I have to look a little bit more into that, but um yeah, I mean, I can
Yeah.
say from somebody who grew up in like a city scape, even I struggled to get mental health education here. Like the first thing I did, well, how it got started for me was kind of unfortunate now, but do you remember We Day?
I totally remember We Day.
I'm like, you're a student leader, like 100%, you know who we did.
Totally.
Um, I
Totally.
remember seeing a commercial for that and thinking it was the coolest thing that so many people were coming together for like this good like cause and doing good in the community. And I was
Yeah.
like if so many people can come together for that, like I would love to put something like that on. Like I love performing, like I would love to do something like that. And I was like, wait, but like what kind of needs that attention? And I was 13. I was literally like mental health because
Oh, cool.
I was born with anxiety disorder and panic disorder, so I went into therapy when I was 7. So I've like been dealing with mental health my entire life. So I get
Yeah.
13, it just like clicked. I don't even know what happened. And the first thing I did for my school, which was even hard to do, was I tried to get an assembly because in grade 10, there was a lady from the board who came to give a mental health assembly. And it was literally her with a chart behind her going, if you're in the green zone, you're good. If you're in the orange zone, like check yourself out. If you're in the red zone, go get help. And I'm like, that was absolutely useless, but like, thanks for coming in. And I came up
Yeah.
with my own that like talked about prevalent disorders, what we were doing within the school, and like other resources. Pitched it that year, got denied. Pitched the next year, got denied. Pitched it grade 12, they said fine, but you need to have a club with you. I was like, okay. So I came up with a whole mental health association. It was like me and like 3 other students and a bunch of teachers, and all the teachers got all the credit, of course. But finally we were able to do 2 assemblies
Yeah.
at the end of grade 12, and I had people coming up to me saying like I needed that, like thank you. And I didn't even realize that. I just thought we needed a better assembly for mental health education.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think that assembly piece is so funny because what is it about like elementary school assemblies that like either leave you like completely floored or have done absolutely nothing? And I think it's like that's what's been so interesting to me as someone who wants to be a public speaker and is growing in that industry. I'm trying to think of who I was as a kid and what I needed to hear versus what I did hear. I remember getting a lot of like show integrity, show respect, and be the person who takes a small idea and makes it big. And I'm very mindful now when I go into youth audiences that that's not always the message for kids. Like a lot of kids truly are focused on survival. We need to be talking about education, about preventative measures to take care of kids because some kids are like simply not in that place, and that is 100% okay. And I got a lot of messaging a kid to do the big thing, do a really impactful, massive thing. And that's great. But as a perfectionist and someone who was super sensitive and maybe just needed to learn to take better care of themselves, like that wasn't the message for me, despite getting it over and over again. So I think that's super interesting that you bring that up because I think it's a huge element of like when we're talking about youth mental health and what your earliest exposures are to that conversation, oftentimes it's not great. And then young leaders are forced to come back to that and to your point, like recreate what that looks like. Like, let's get better education in here. Let's try to make a different kind of impact because it's not working right now.
Yeah, I mean, there are two assemblies that I can remember from like elementary school that really stuck out to me. The first one, I don't actually remember the person, but I think he was like a guitarist and he came to like sing and he talks about like being like a hero and like a superhero. And it like really inspired me because it was more like being like a leadership hero, not like superhero, like Superman. Like I was like, oh, like I asked after because I was big with like the environment, like I always have been. I was like, oh, like is David Suzuki a hero? And he was like, absolutely. I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
the second one was Free the Children, which is originally We. And
Yeah.
I don't even think they did like a thing with other people, with like specific people who were like chosen afterwards. And I think I just went. I don't even think I was chosen. I was just like, oh, this looks fun. And I just went. And no one
Oh,
stopped
leadership
me.
kids are built different.
Nobody stopped me. I was like, hey, I'm just gonna go. And then yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and I actually so I realized this the first time I did public speaking, I was actually 10. And
Wow.
it wasn't for mental health. It was actually
Oh,
no. Okay, take a guess what it might be.
I mean, you just said environment was a big thing for you, but I feel like that's too much of an easy guess. Was it for we, like me to we?
No,
No, interesting. I mean, we grew up in such different areas. I have no
I
idea what
know.
it
I
could
did it with something called Future Possibilities for Kids. So it was like a leadership thing. Again, that I wasn't invited to, but I asked to go and they were like, "Yeah, go ahead."
You're like, I'm not chosen, but I'm going to make myself
I want
chosen.
to go. Thank you.
Yeah,
I was
thanks.
like called to it. I don't know. But it was animal rights.
Okay,
Animal rights.
cool.
So I was speaking out against animal abuse and neglect, and I still have the little like paper that I like the little like pamphlet thing that I had, and
Yeah,
yeah, I spoke in front of my whole school, and I have the award right there. It's the Courage Award. I won right after the Character Matters Award.
oh,
I got it right
sweet.
after, so I always have that. Yeah.
I mean, I think there is something to be said about like kiddos who show signs of being really interested in activism, like needing outlets for that later in life. Like again, I'm so grateful I found those because I was similar in that way. Like I remember doing little fundraisers in my school to like save the spirit bears and like a bunch of things that I think I just like saw online and I was like, well, we need to fix this right now, right? And it's like, what is that? What is that all about? But I'm grateful for it. Like it's such a big part of my life.
Move on. Okay, so this is a fun one. What are some of the coolest projects that you got to be a part of or that you got to work on so far?
Okay. I love this question. I think like they can be cool for different reasons. Like recently, to your point about Noah Khan, I was super excited to be the spokesperson for Jack.org on the Busy Head project. We were talking about all the organizations that Noah supports, and Jack.org is one of them. So I was super excited to do that. I've kind of stepped into like a media ambassador role with Jack.org this year, so that's been really exciting. Definitely Bridges of Hope is up there. I was part of this really cool project during the pandemic that didn't end up carrying on, but it was called the Activist Collab, and it was a group of young activists in all different kinds of fields across North America. And it was really cool. We had lots of ideas. We did like video projects, we did social media awareness, and we also pitched an idea of a TV show to a couple networks. And obviously it didn't take off, or else my life would have looked very different.
They're lost. They're
Was
lost. Damn.
yeah, right? Right. Come on, Netflix. We talked about it being kind of like, have you seen Queer Eye?
No, but I know what it is. I need to watch it.
So good.
I need to
Kind of
watch
like
it.
being Queer Eye for activism. So it'd be like five activists who come into a community, they find their hero, and they're like, okay, you want to make a difference? Like, we are going to help you and guide you along the way. of doing that. And like such a cool concept for a show. But yeah, I mean, just cool in essence to have gotten together with other activists in the community and really just like, yeah, had that reality for a little bit, even if it didn't pan out. It was
That's
cool to
so
talk
cool.
about.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So this is because you said you talked about performing a little bit and like being a theater quieter kid. We're gonna talk more. Like we already talked about it. I have my playbills right there. We're gonna talk about it. What's your favorite thing to do or something that makes you feel like you shine on stage?
I don't know if I've told you this, but I'm part of a cheesy glee choir right now. I have been for almost 2 years now. And it's with like 140 other grown adults, and we sing like Bruno Mars and Elton John and Lady Gaga and Bare Naked Ladies and just like dance and sing. And we're so fortunate we get to do an entire show weekend. So actually this weekend, I was at like a 4 hour rehearsal yesterday. And we love what we do. I love the opportunity to be with other people because when I do public speaking, it's very much on my own. And I love to be able to kind of like collaborate and work as a team to create these awesome numbers. We've got great leaders that help us create something awesome. And we go to actually my former university to perform because I'm just outside of that area. And so, yeah, I absolutely love performing that way. I grew up doing some like solo vocal things and duets and whatever, but this has been the absolute highlight is being in an actual glee choir. I feel like every time rehearsal starts, I'm just like, and that's what you missed on Glee. And
I'm
it's
like,
just own
if you
moment.
lived through 2012, your dream was to be part of a Glee club. Like your dream, I watched that show religiously. I
Absolutely.
love
Yeah.
that show. I actually went to a dance camp and one of the themes for one of the sessions was Glee. So you already know it was like I just went on stage for the first time by myself in almost 6 years and dance.
Hey.
Yeah, and I did it. It's on my Instagram. I don't know if you saw it. I did it solo, and
Oh, yeah, I did see
it's
this
yeah
actually.
the hip hop one.
That's so
Yeah,
fun.
and it was all it
Hip
was
hop is one of my favorites. I'm
yeah.
also in like a tap class right now, and that's been fun because I did pre-comp tap. And so being able to like dive into that again is fun. But in terms of style, hip hop is so fun. Just love it.
But I love all styles. Like when people ask me, they're like, "What styles do you do?" I'm like, "I do all styles." Like I go to drop-ins. I did like ballroom when I was in elementary school because for some reason my elementary school just randomly had salsa competitions. Like I don't know why. Like I'm literally in
Yeah.
fucking Bond, so I don't know what's going on. But being at the rehearsal, like even like being in rehearsal is fun. Like even if you're just like sitting in the seat and you're like watching other people, it's just a vibe.
Yeah.
Just the vibes, man. It's the vibes.
Yes,
It's the
for
vibes.
sure.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know doing the because I had to do a headstand for mine and I was like doing headstands for like 3 days straight in like rehearsal for like
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, the
Like I
preparation.
probably stunted my growth even more.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the last time because we did two shows. It was there was one at 1 and then one at 7. And the first one was obviously nerve-wracking because that was the first time I was going on stage and alone and for the first time in like a really long time. And then the second time it was
Yeah.
like busier and like the more lit show. And so the second time my hands were like really clammy
Mm.
before I went on and I was so worried. I was like, what happens if they slip and I'm in the headstand? And like I told people that after and they were like, "Oh, don't worry, we would clap for you." I was like, "Oh, that's great, but that's not what I was worried about."
Yeah. I just don't want to fall, but thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you would clap, but like I also want to like not be paralyzed. So thanks. On to the next question. Um, was there ever a time where you felt disconnected from your art?
Absolutely. I think if we're talking about the mental health activism piece of things, it's so easy to get burnt out in this field. It was actually last fall where I made the decision to try a job that wasn't in mental health advocacy. I decided, I do so much of it with public speaking and volunteer work that I should really try to give myself a bit of a brain break in some capacity. Even just with school, I studied social development and peace and conflict studies. So when I wasn't talking about like social issues, I was talking about war and conflict and
Hmm.
how we argue with one another. So it was a long 4 years, as you can imagine. I think the only like other thing that would have been hard to study would have been history. If I had like brought that in to complement it, that would have just been like a triple triple threat and not in a positive way. And so, post school, I'm diving into a job that's also in mental health that I loved, but I'm also wondering, is this good for me? Like to be able to do the work that I want to do long term, is this the best idea? And so I tried to leave the mental health field and I lasted 5 months in that position. I have learned that it is absolutely what I want to be doing on a daily basis, but it's then something that I have to be very careful with. I've always had to be careful with like boundaries, limits, setting them and knowing them, being really careful with filling up my cup. But unfortunately, I care about it a lot. And I think there are certain jobs that I could do, potentially not in this field that I would still like, but I missed it so much, and I'm super excited to be entering back into the field again soon. Because I tried to take a break from it. It didn't really work. But I think it's easy to get disconnected when you're burnt out. I think for a lot of the pandemic years, I was really focused on content creation with Activist Collab and just with my own work. And I think like content creation can be very draining if you constantly feel like you have to produce something. Like I started feeling so disconnected from what I actually wanted to be accomplishing with mental health advocacy because I was just like, okay, we need another video that's inspiring and we need another carousel about this issue and this cause. And it's like it was such a fast pace, especially when there was so much going on during the pandemic. So it's definitely been a disconnect there. I think the flip side is like when I'm feeling disconnected from the advocacy, I'm also feeling very disconnected from myself, from participating in music, from feeling like I can express myself because that burnout seems to just wipe the slate clean. Like you just don't feel like yourself. Anything that might be good for you is also really hard to do. Like anytime that I feel like okay, I need to start taking care of myself or whatever. I have to muster up the strength to do that because it just feels like a really challenging thing to make the time for. So I definitely think that's a normal thing in mental health advocacy because of the amount of compassion that it takes to do it.
Yeah, and I can also say that like because you're like talking so much about mental health advocacy and you're like advocating for mental health, I know that for me like I like have trouble deciphering like what I need to do for my own mental health and like myself advocating for myself as a mental health advocate and like being a mental health advocate and just like throwing out resources and this and that and helping other people. And I look back at myself and I'm like, what do I do?
Hmm. For sure. I think like I've had to find this line between this story is mine, but this story is also what I do. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
I go into audiences, all of a sudden I'm taking some really vulnerable parts of who I am and what I've been through, and I'm being willing to give it to a bunch of strangers, and I can't control how they're going to treat me or how they'll receive it. And so sometimes after like, public speaking, it just feels like really draining. And like, how do I give authentically, but also not get harmed by sharing so much of myself? So it's definitely a balance for sure.
There's one more question, but I also want to go just a little bit more into the last one. Um,
Okay, yeah, then let's do it.
with being disconnected, do you have any like things of like being disconnected from like your performing? Because I know that just recently I was disconnected from dance and I thought it was me, um,
Mm.
and it was actually my environment. And I was like,
Oh, that's
I was like, I was putting in the work to grow as a dancer. I'm like, I'm not growing, like I'm not doing as well as I thought, like I'm not executing the moves like I want, like what's going on? And it was actually the environment. I realized it was the environment just because of the way there was so much favoritism and it was just not
mm,
it. And so I pulled myself out and then I did this dance for my school and like I was fine and I started going as a dancer again. So
interesting. Yeah, I definitely think that for several years I have like reverse stage fright where I don't like performing in front of people I know or small groups. I
yeah,
need to
same.
be in front of like a bunch of
Yep.
people because then I don't think about it.
Yep.
So I stopped like even just playing piano around the house and stuff. Like I wasn't really I don't just like sing like I sing in my car. And so I think for sure there were years there without this choir that I'm a part of where I just was so disconnected because I didn't know how to be a part of it in a safe way for me. And eventually it's like a long-term goal for me to get over that, to just like start playing piano in the house, like no one cares and stuff like that. But it's gonna take some time. So yeah, I totally feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have horrible stage fright with singing. I have like, because I could like sing when I was younger, and I think I can still sing, but I don't know. I've been told I can, and I can like hold a note, but I'm like so, I can't even sing in front of my stuffed animals because they're judging me. I know they are.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
They look at me going, "Oh, who is you?" Okay, so for the last one, and again, because you're like a mental health activist, I like to ask this question for people who are in mental health. Um, or yeah, no, or for leadership too. What advice can you give to somebody who wants to start advocating for mental health, or even just advocating at all?
I think, like I said before, it really can be a small idea that gets you started. And I think, too, don't underestimate the power of getting involved in a community versus doing it alone. I was really lucky that when I started Bridges of Hope, I had a friend who I was doing it with, and we also had a local photographer who kind of took us under her wing and helped kind of show us the ropes of what we were actually trying to accomplish. And I would never want to do what we did alone. I can't even imagine trying to do it without the co-founder that I had. And um, so I really think like rely on people, look for the people who are already doing it because oftentimes they'll be so excited and ready to engage with you. They'll be like, "You're joining us, you're going to be an activist." Like, yes, this is so great. And so find them, definitely like ask questions, but keep it small. Like this, it does not have to be a big impact project. I feel like, well, like I said, it was preached to me a million times over that you can make a big difference and you can change the world and do X, Y, Z. You don't have to do it that way. Maybe just start by having a hard conversation with a friend about how they're feeling or how you're feeling, or ask the local counseling agency if you can work together on an event about social media literacy or systems change in mental health. Like start with what feels most comfortable for you because that's where you're really going to thrive. That's where we need you, is where you find your skills lie and where you feel really comfortable.
Honestly, I think I need to hear that, and I've been advocating for almost 10 years. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping it small and like I think starting small is really, really good. I want to do like a one of like my first event for my organization, which would be just like card making to send into psych wards. Because I have a friend, Fran Reacher, who I don't know if I perform or if I pronounced that right. But she has her own organization. It's called Inspiring My Generation, and that's one of the big things that they do is send cards into psych wards. So I
I
really
love
like that.
that.
I know it's really awesome, and so I did that a couple years ago before Halloween. I went just to donate cards to the psych ward that I was in with some chocolates
Mhm.
because I remember being really hungry in the psych ward.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Snacks.
Yeah, you need snacks. I remember knocking on their door being like, "Do you have any more cookies?"
Oh my
And they'd be
gosh.
like, "Go away." No. Okay, well, that was it. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so great to chat. I love being able to talk not just about mental health, but about like the more dimensions that exist for people because we're not just advocates. We were people first too. And so I love talking about performing. Love hearing that you're a theater nerd too. And I can't wait to hear about these big ideas that you have. It sounds amazing.
Okay, well, I'm gonna hang up so that we can.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. I will see you next time. Bye bye.